Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're breaking down a seriously fascinating chapter that demystifies a health system that, honestly, gets pretty deeply misunderstood in the modern world. We're exploring Ayurveda, and we are not looking at it as some quirky collection of folk remedies. No, the source text actually reveals it as a highly systematized, rigorously documented science of human health. So, let's get into it and uncover how this ancient wisdom is quite literally meeting modern science.
Here's our roadmap for this journey. We've got 1. The science of life, 2. An unbroken health tradition, 3. The 8 medical branches, 4. Bridging East and West, and finally, 5. Modern science catches up.
Starting right off with Section 1, the science of life. So you might be wondering, what is the exact definition here? Well, the word Ayurveda literally translates to the science of life. And what the chapter makes abundantly clear is just how incredibly vast that definition truly is. It doesn't just look at a physical symptom in isolation, it's looking at the whole shebang, your physiological state, your psychology, your environment, even your ecological health. What does that actually mean for us? Well, say you've got a stomachache, an Ayurvedic approach doesn't just, treat the stomach, it looks at the current season, the climate you live in, your stress levels, your surrounding ecosystem. It treats you as an interconnected node within a much larger environment. This is a massive treasure house of scientific concepts designed not just to slap a band-aid on a disease, but to proactively optimize your health and give you a longer, happier lifespan.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because to really grasp the weight of this science, we have to look at the history, and it is staggering. Ayurveda's earliest roots are basically lost in the mists of antiquity, originating in the Vedas, which are some of the oldest written-down texts on the planet. But the crucial midpoint here, it was codified and systematized into a rigorous medical science at least 4,000 years ago. To put that into perspective, that is a solid 1,500 years before the era of Hippocrates, the guy widely considered the father of Western medicine. So while Europe was in a completely different historical era, the Indian subcontinent had already established this highly structured, codified medical framework. Crazy, right?
Moving on to Section 2, an unbroken health tradition.
Think about the remedies your grandmother might have given you when you were sick. In the Indian subcontinent, adding black pepper and turmeric to hot milk to treat a cold is a deeply, deeply embedded household practice. And this brilliantly illustrates our point, because this isn't just some cultural quirk, it's actually precise pharmacology passed down as a recipe. Modern science now tells us that black pepper contains a compound called piperine, which famously boosts the bioavailability of curcumin, that's the active ingredient in turmeric, by roughly 2,000%. 2,000! It's wild. This shows exactly how the theoretical frameworks of a 4,000-year-old science have seamlessly woven themselves into daily activities, cooking, and dietary habits. It's a living, breathing, empirically tested tradition.
And the scope of this tradition is absolutely massive. Notice the overlapping spheres here of consciousness, mind, and the physical body. Right at their intersection, you find these fundamental physiological domains, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Let's demystify these terms really quickly, because they're absolutely crucial. According to the source chapter, Vata governs movement and the nervous system. Pitta governs metabolism, digestion, and transformation. And Kapha? That governs physical structure, stability, and lubrication. Ayurveda basically operates on the hypothesis that the macrocosm of the universe and the microcosm of human biology share these exact same underlying patterns. Because of this, it applies this precise ecological approach to human health, to animal health, and yes, even to plant biology. The idea is that everything operates under the same fundamental laws of nature.
Okay, bringing us to Part 3, the 8 medical branches. This is where we see just how clinically rigorous this tradition actually became. Systematized Ayurveda was incredibly specialized. We're not just talking about general practitioners giving vague wellness advice here. The chapter outlines 8 distinct, highly developed medical branches. We've got Kaya Chikitsa, which is internal medicine, Shalya Tantra, which translates directly to surgery, and yes, you heard that right, they were performing complex surgical procedures millennia ago. They also had entirely dedicated branches for diseases of the head and neck, pediatrics for the unique biology of children, and even Agata Tantra, which is the rigorous study of toxicology. Honestly, it's just astonishing to realize that a complete hospital-grade division of medical labor was conceptualized and executed 4,000 years ago. And all of those specialized branches, they were supported by a mountain of observational data. The source chapter highlights that this was a continuous process of consolidating and validating knowledge based on, get this, millennia of astute clinical observations, documentation, and logical inference. Think of it like the ultimate supersized longitudinal study. We're talking about theories, surgical techniques, and therapies that have been tested, tweaked, and verified by thousands of physicians on literally millions of patients over thousands of years. It was, and still is, a deeply empirical, heavily data-driven medical system.
Which naturally leads us to part 4, bridging East and West.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the profound philosophical contrast that emerges when we bridge the East and the West. Traditional Western medicine has been massively shaped by classical Newtonian physics. Because of this, it's historically been fairly reductionistic. What does that mean? Well, if you have a heart problem, you go see a cardiologist who studies the heart in isolation. It's almost like a mechanic looking at a single broken part in a car engine. It's very disease-centric. Ayurveda, on the flip side, is fundamentally systems-based. It looks at the entire, interconnected, ecological network of the individual, with a massive focus on preventing disease before the car part ever breaks down in the first place. But, and this is a great point from the chapter, there's a highly encouraging trend happening right now. Western medicine is steadily moving away from strict reductionism and toward a much more inclusive, holistic, systems biology vision.
And that shift brings us to our final section. Modern science catches up.
So, when did these two distinct worlds actually intersect on the global stage? Well, the answer brings us to the year 2017. A major milestone hit the medical community that brought this ancient wisdom right into the spotlight of contemporary science. And it happened with a Nobel Prize.
That huge breakthrough was unlocking the molecular mechanisms behind the circadian rhythm. Modern science finally mapped out the precise internal biological clocks that dictate our cellular metabolism and our rhythms on a 24-hour cycle. I mean, we all kind of intuitively know about this, right? It's exactly why jet lag feels so completely terrible, or why late-night snacking totally wrecks your sleep. But in 2017, scientists proved mathematically and molecularly how absolutely crucial these daily biological rhythms are to maintaining our overall health, repairing DNA, and preventing chronic disease.
So the crucial point here is how this incredible modern discovery mirrors the ancient text. For thousands of years, Ayurveda has been meticulously documenting these exact circadian and seasonal rhythm changes in the body through those VPK domains we defined a few minutes ago: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. For example, Ayurveda noted millennia ago that Pitta, which is the domain of metabolism and digestion, naturally peaks in the middle of the day when the sun is at its highest, which is exactly why ancient texts recommend making lunch your largest meal. What modern researchers are charting under electron microscopes today as cellular metabolism rhythms perfectly aligns with the daily biological shifts documented by ancient Indian physicians. And remember, they mapped these complex biological rhythms through sheer clinical observation, literally thousands of years before the microscope was even a thought.
As this chapter has shown us, ancient wisdom and modern science are absolutely no longer mutually exclusive paradigms, which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought to ponder. If modern systems biology and Nobel Prize-winning medicine are just now in the 21st century, beginning to validate and map the precise mechanisms of health concepts that were codified 4,000 years ago, what other ancient insights, hidden in this massive, unbroken tradition, might hold the key to our future health? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.